Week two of college football is in the books, and we saw one upset. We saw a few intriguing games, and we saw massive blowouts. I am here with my partner, Avery Jones. Avery, how are you? Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. A wonderful week in college football. Of course, once week one, you have schools that, will get a conference opponent or a top non-conference opponent. But then week two, you have what you call your bye wins. And some schools, kind of needed that to bounce back a bit. But another great week in college football.
Yes, yes, indeed. And the first one we're going to talk about is Oklahoma beating Michigan, 24 to 13. And there are two things that helped the Sooners win this game: the defense and John Mateer. Defense, John Mateer. Defense, John Mateer. Earlier on Saturday, Avery, on the ESPN College Football YouTube channel, there's like this 4 or 5 minute video of John Mateer getting interviewed. And one of the questions that was asked about, why do you pick Oklahoma? And he said, it's Oklahoma. Look at the quarterbacks that came out of that school. And he wants to be the next one in line from there. And he delivered once again. But I believe that as good as he was against Michigan, for me, what stood out to most was that defensive line and how they got, and we spoke about this, that Michigan, um, the quarterback, he did well in week one, but he's gonna have to be preparing himself for week two. And look what happened. Oklahoma, much credit to their defense. They played terrific, and now they are 2-0 to start the season. And they found themselves the right quarterback for now.
Absolutely. John McTeer played not only a great game, but he solidified himself in the conversation of, as he said, a great Oklahoma quarterback. And of course, College Game Day was coming from Norman, Oklahoma. So, I mean, what better way to definitely solidify yourself to have College Game Day there? And yet make sure that for those on the panel that didn't choose you to win, you made the case that yes, you can win at Oklahoma. And not only do you have a great team behind you, you also have the aspects of the team working in your benefit. Oklahoma's defense was a key role in Michigan's defeat. So, you're going to take that. Oklahoma's going to grab onto it. They're going to fine tune any other way that they need to excel because looking at Oklahoma's schedule, like anything, once it comes to certain games, you now have to win. So Oklahoma is in a really good position right now to make sure they can solidify themselves in the playoff picture.
Iowa versus Iowa State. The game did not disappoint. This is one of the matchups that we were excited to watch. I was a little bit surprised about the scoring of it, but it was entertaining itself. Rocco Beck, I feel old because I watched his father play Anthony Beck when he was with the Jets,
Yeah.
and I'm seeing the son play in college, so it makes me feel old in that regard. But I believe in my heart that he's going to be a future NFL player. I have a feeling that Rocco Beck is going to be a future NFL player, and he gives me this. I don't like making comparisons, but he gives me that kind of like Brock Purdy kind of feel for this particular team. He gives me that kind of feel in the sense that, you know, always wanted to prove himself something, being a gamer. And but Iowa State, I mean Iowa, I'm not gonna look at the quarterback. I'm gonna look at more on the other guys that didn't step up, and also some of the decisions that the coaching staff made in this game. I feel that Iowa could have thrown the ball more deep end. I feel like they could have done that in this game in certain possessions of the game. I feel that Iowa, in certain aspects, they dropped the ball in that regard. But
I agree with you. There were certain aspects watching that game that I felt that Iowa could have taken a chance and worked the Iowa State corners because it looks like their receivers had at least a step or two on them. So Iowa not kind of going at least for that one deep ball to kind of shake up the secondary could have worked in their favor, especially if they scored. But Iowa State, even where they are ranked, this is a good win for them. They have their interstate rivalry game taken care of. Now it's going to be all about winning these conference games. And I agree with you. Rocco has this kind of low key um aura that could definitely work in the NFL. Um, not real flashy, not from a school everybody kind of knows, but his numbers have always been decent. We've seen him play for the past couple of years, and his numbers have always been very very above average for other quarterbacks in college football. So I look to like McTier at Oklahoma. I look for Besh at Iowa State to take this win, solidify himself, work to see what works for him, but also from the team aspect, what else do they need to do to again work their way into that playoff conversation?
this other matchup, it bothered me just a little bit that they lost because I'm covering them this season for the Aluminum Journal, and this is a team that I started to become a fan of, and that is Arizona State. They lost a heartbreaker to Mississippi State. In the first quarter, Mississippi State had all the momentum. Their quarterback, Blake Shapen, he was throwing some nice passes, especially a 48-yard touchdown to open up the scoreboard. For the most part, the Sun Devils defense, they held up their end, but it was the offense and the special teams that really affected them in this game. And just when they were about to steal one on the road, they gave up a last minute touchdown, which was crushing, super crushing. And this was a very tough loss for Arizona State. Yes, it's week 2, but still is a tough loss. And there's that question that people are asking Kenny Dillingham, like, should have you gone for it? And if for those of you who saw the highlights or saw the game, knows what I'm talking about. Um, Coaching, when it comes to crunch time, that's when you know what a coach is made of. And Dillingham, he is fearless, but this is one of those decisions that had he had to do it all over again, he probably would have done it differently. But regardless, the offense just needs to be better. They completely hit a nose dive compared to week 1. That offense needs to be way better. Sam Levy didn't play his best, and the running game, didn't get nothing going. Like I said, the offense and special teams just absolutely crushed them in this game.
Yeah, believe it or not, I had Arizona State beating Mississippi State. So it was interesting to see that all the great things that worked for Arizona State sometimes, or at least against the Bulldogs, it didn't work out. I kind of compare to Arizona State head coaches like, a Dan Campbell of the Detroit Lions, just like a little bit less intensity. But when he needs to bring out that intensity in his players, he knows where to tap in to make it work. And I completely agree with you. Now, they lost Scatterbo, their running back, to the draft. And I hope all the best for him because he got drafted by the Giants, I believe. So I look for great things for him. So I know they need to retool their running game, and that's okay. We're gonna give them the time to do it. Also, because Arizona State was a playoff team, a lot of people are looking at them. Can they repeat that success? Some of them are kind of saying, they kind of got in on a fluke. But the one thing I think you love about Arizona State, and one thing I loved about Arizona State during the playoffs was they didn't listen to anybody. They played football. Granted, there's nothing wrong. You do kind of have to listen, hear what your critics are saying, but you don't have to take it to heart. So I look for the Sun Devils, along with their head coach, to go back to film, see what worked, what didn't work, and take it, because now you're looking at the schedule. Like anything, you want to repeat or have greater success than previous seasons. Everything about anything in life, especially college football, you always want, to either repeat the success or you want to do more. You never want to falter. And even if you falter, if it's heartbreaking, you gave it your all. You gave 200 to 5,000% of yourself, of your team, to get the win. So I look for the Sun Devils to bounce back from this. I look for I look for their quarterback. I also look for their special teams to see what else they can do to make themselves better. But I'm not going to give up on the Sun Devils. I have the Sun Devils, you know, kind of in that conversation again. I know their schedule could be a bit daunting, but don't count them out. Don't count them out.
Yeah, I want them to win the Big 12 conference. I'm sorry, is it the Big 12 or Pac-12? I'm losing.
I thought they split it up.
Yeah, but regardless, I want them
Yeah.
to go back to back, and it's gonna be tough. And I feel that the one team that could get in the way of them capturing that conference is Texas Tech because they did a very good job in
Yes.
recruiting and the transfer portal. So, but and they're gonna meet next month. So I'm looking forward to that matchup. Upset alert, Avery. The almighty South Florida defeated Florida Gators 18 to 16, and the South Florida they're 2-0. As a Miami Hurricane fan, I am keeping my eye on this game because they're gonna play each other in week 3. So the Hurricanes, who is also 2-0, they don't want to take this team lightly. They don't. So now that Florida Gator is lost, Billy Napier, his name comes up once again. So take it from there, Avery.
Oh, I called this game. I called this game at work. I told them, I was like, "Hey, do not count out South Florida. They beat Boise State. Don't think that Boise State, just because they lost one key player, are not a good team." So when South Florida beat Boise State week 1, I kind of told him, I was like, you might want to look out for South Florida. South Florida, over the past 5 years, especially after COVID, they've become this school that if you play them, you may not you may not pay attention to their previous game, or if they won their previous game, or whether it was a blowout or was it close. But they do have a tendency to play these very great games and disrupt any other team's momentum. So looking at the schedule with Florida now playing South Florida, I kind of told some colleagues, I said, if Florida is not paying attention, they're going to get beat by South Florida. And after, for my Miami fans who I work with, South Florida beats Florida. You all have to pay attention to the South Florida Bulls, because if you're not taking them seriously, you're going to be looking just like Florida. And South Florida could be this surprise team, of college football. They're in a unique conference, but like anything, Any college football team, we've said it before, any given Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you show up, you play the game, you win. And no matter who you are, if you win, a win is a win. But for those teams, it makes it all that more enjoyable. So for my Miami Hurricane fans, I need you all to get a clear head of this. Do not underestimate the South Florida Bulls. And hopefully the Miami Hurricanes do not underestimate the South Florida Bulls, because knowing that Miami beat Notre Dame, which it was a close win, but it could have gotten away from them, the Hurricanes need to take the Bulls of South Florida very seriously, very, very seriously. So I think South Florida is kind of this team you gotta watch out for, and any team that's ranked that has them on the schedule for the next, let's say, 3 or 4 weeks, you need to keep an eye out. You need to pay attention. You do not need to put these unranked schools in a category where you don't believe they can beat you, because it's happened. We've seen it.
Yes, indeed. And Nico Grammatica, he came through clutch in this game for South Florida, kicking those field goals. And once again, it makes me feel old because he's the son of Martin Grammatica, who was the kicker for 10 seasons. But
Yep.
he's mostly remembered for his time with the Tampa Bay Bucks, which was from 99 to 2004. And those were some of my favorite Buck teams with Derek Brooks, Warren Sapp, and the list goes on and on. And Martin Grammatica, he was an accurate kicker in his time. So now we see that his son is following his footsteps. Yeah, it makes me feel old. So yeah, that's the second example of the day. But that's what happens when you have so many years watching a sport. You start watching someone, and next you know the son, which we're seeing that a lot nowadays,
We've
that the sons
and
are
we've
following.
seen it, and we've seen it with Marvin Harrison Jr. We grew up watching his dad and Peyton Manning just show out for years. And next thing you know, we're hearing about his son at Ohio State just destroying records. And we're like, wait a minute. I'm pretty sure that wasn't a while ago, you know. So, oh, absolutely. We're watching this new generation of football players that are, sons and nephews of players that, we've grown up, whether it be watching college football or pro football. It is good to see. It is good to see because, maybe dads and uncles, don't want their sons to follow in their footsteps, but if given the opportunity and they really love it, why not? Why not?
Another story that happened this weekend, and this one brings me a lot of joy because I was a fan of this particular player, and to go from seeing him play in college to the pros, and I was the head coach. And the person I'm talking about is Mr. Michael Vick. He has earned his first win as a head coach, and it came against Virginia State. They were trailing 23 to 10. It looked like he was about to go 1-2, but they came back and they won in overtime, 34 to 31. So congratulations to Michael Vick and Norfolk State on this incredible accomplishment. It's just like, wow, 45 years old now, watching him when he was at Virginia Tech, from there to the Falcons, a guy that paved the way for so many quarterbacks that we're seeing nowadays, like Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, etc. It's just flat out amazing. It brings a smile to my face because, again, Michael Vick was one of my favorite quarterbacks during that era in the early 2000s. And I've been following him, like I said, since college. So, um, yes, it was very tough to see him go through the whole, you know, the situation, the dog situation. But the important thing, Avery, is that the fact that he was giving a second chance in his life, which people, as soon as someone screws up, they want that person to disappear, like they don't deserve no second chance. But look, this is a redemption. Like Michael Vick is a definition of redemption.
Yeah, he is going through a redemption arc, and you're absolutely right. He made mistakes, and sometimes when people make mistakes, yes, people always want to focus that. But Michael Vick proved after the dogfighting scandal, he wanted to prove he wasn't that person. And I'll go ahead and applaud that. And granted, not a lot of people wanted to give him a chance, so he had to do it other ways. And granted, everything cannot change overnight. So you had to work hard. Being with the Eagles, it didn't work out well, but it worked out in ways that you knew he could still play football. He was a analyst for Fox, which I think, like some former football players, when they want to go on broadcasting, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Fox had nothing but rave reviews about him when he worked with them. So now, and I've said it before, I do like when you have former football players, especially those that played professionally, that are now going to the college level, and they are tapping in to these young men to help them succeed. And we're seeing it all over. We've seen it with Deion Sanders, we've seen it with Eddie George. And Eddie George at Bowling Green, man, even if you can't see that team on any type of figure out how to watch Bowling Green. So Eddie George is working with these young men, and not just the fact that they have a really cool cat mascot, but you need to check out how Eddie George is helping these young men. They are playing some really great football in a conference that can be overlooked. And again, you have Michael Vick, Norfolk State. Again, I too was keeping an eye on how Michael Vick was going to coach that team. They got their first win, and now it's just, hey, we got this now. Okay, what works, what doesn't work. And just like any other team, you come together, get in the film room, study, make sure you are telling your players not only how you play on the football field matters, but also what you do off the field can have that effect. And I think because those young men are seeing this redemption arc, even if they weren't, you know, even alive to know what happened, they want to trust this man. They want to trust this man. And like anything, when your parents are sending you away to college, they want to put their trust in coaches and teachers and professors that are saying, "Hey, this is my son. I need you to look after him in any way you can. I need you to mentor him." So I applaud Michael Vick. We talked about it. When he got the job, I was definitely excited for what he could do. So now let's keep it going. Let's keep it going. Let's see how Norfolk State does. Let's see in the next couple years how it works out. And if possible, I hope to see Michael Vick, move on up in, other divisions of college football if that is his goal. So I'm here for it. I'm ready for it. I know a lot of these young men want to see these coaches succeed too, and they know they don't want to let their coaches down either as well.
Salute to Michael Vick, Eddie George. Eddie George, who was one of my favorite running backs from those early 2000s. Happy for him. I admire a lot of these former players that are going into coaching, especially if they're starting with HBCU. So salute to all of them, and I wish them nothing but the best and much more success going forward. But Avery, Ole Miss got their revenge. Ole Miss beat
Oh
Kentucky
yes.
30 to
Oh yes.
23.
And they beat the spread. And they beat the spread, which was kind of funny. But yeah, Lane Kiffin was not gonna lie down for the Wildcats. They were playing that game on the road. They wanted to take everything they could from the Wildcats. It was a bit shaky for the Ole Miss Rebels, but they played a really great game, and Lane Kiffin got his revenge.
And last but not least, how about this one? Baylor and SMU. What a shootout.
Oh,
48 to
yes.
45, double overtime.
And how I knew this was going to be a shootout because when I started looking to see what games to watch at 12 o'clock, Baylor and SMU were on, and I decided to at least catch about half of that game. However, right out of the gate, when SMU received the ball, first play from scrimmage, a great pass over the middle to start what I figured was going to be a shootout. And it was heartbreaking for SMU. But let me tell you, anybody who was talking about SMU last year, again, not deserving the playoff spot, even though they lost, still look out for them. Now they have kind of this hunger. Like, even if they didn't have that hunger before, they now have that hunger. They played a really great game against Baylor. SMU's defense was that star, even though the score doesn't reflect it. But there are really good bright spots out of that SMU, especially their secondary. Baylor, I know Baylor has kind of been um, kind of a hit or miss team for the past few years, but Baylor just didn't give up. Baylor just did not give up. So I look for both schools to use this for momentum and how it can work in their favor. But, if for anybody that was sleeping on SMU, don't. And if anybody was kind of laughing at them, oh, they can't even play Baylor. No, they played a really great game, and Baylor played a really great game. And like anything, we said it before, any given Saturday, anything can change. So you could be revving up your team one Saturday, talking smack during the week. Next thing you know, you're coming into work Monday, Tuesday, and you have to be silent. That happened to me week one. I'm an Alabama fan. I had to keep my mouth shut. So all of us football fans, we have our team. We want to put them on the highest pedestal we can, but we know the rules of college football. Anything can change. Anything can change.
Yes, indeed. And I mean, that second and fourth quarter was just madness. Both teams in the second quarter combined for 35 points, and then the fourth quarter, 28 points. So, but congrats to Baylor and SMU. Keep your head up high. Just like you, I won't count them out for the rest of the season. But man, that was one of the most thrilling um, games that we saw in week two. So, but that concludes our reaction, our analysis, our thoughts of week two of college football time with Avery Miguel. Stay tuned on Thursday or Friday as we give our previews for week three, which shall be fun. So we're gonna keep you guys updated on what we think some of the games will be interesting to watch, what games to watch, games to look out for, and like I know there's a broken record when we say this, but me and Avery, we love doing this. We love college sports. I know there's college football, but we just love sports in general. This is our life, and it's a blessing, to wake up and do what we love to do. So, guys, thank you for tuning in for today's content. If you guys enjoy this video, please kindly give it a thumbs up. If you want to subscribe, feel free to subscribe. No pressure. So, but Avery, thank you once again. This was great. And yeah, now we gotta look forward to week three.
Absolutely. Week three, hey, that's when you get those wonderful uh numbered matchups that, you have teams looking to go for an upset, or you have that team that just got ranked to keep their momentum going. So, this weekend looks to be another great weekend in college football. Week three.